Hi, it's me, RachaelLyn, and today on Monday Madness, I'm going to talk about what it's like to work at Churchill Downs. Okay, so the main thing that I was going to talk about as far as what it's like to work at Churchill Downs is more about like what it's like to, because I'm always talking about how I like am trying to work but I don't work, and like what that process is, just because it's something that I talk about a lot. And I'll go ahead and tell you the same process is used at Keeneland when I worked there, and Churchill, and then as far as I know it's the same for pretty much every racetrack that employs union employees. So first of all, I am in a union in order to be placed, and in order to build seniority, you have to be a part of the union. Union dues are not that much. If you've seen my budgets, it's about $300 a year, and that includes $50 for a racing license. Now, it sounds like a lot, I guess. I pay $300 to work, but I more than make up for that. Like, oh goodness, like not even 3 days of work and more than pays for that. So it is definitely worth it to pay for that. And just working Oaks and Derby every year, I mean, like, that way more than pays for it, and that's just those 2 days. So anyway, okay. I hope that I can explain this correctly and not confuse you. Okay, so the way that it works is every day that you work at Churchill Downs, you build up 1 day of seniority, and it goes on seniority every day, and then each track is different. So I have a different seniority number at Churchill than I do at Keeneland, and I have worked at other tracks, but not for seniority. I just worked I worked at Preakness in Maryland once, and I worked at Belmont in New York. I think I might have done that one twice, but like I did that through a different thing because they need extra workers for those big races that are part of the Triple Crown. So I'm not talking about those, I'm just talking about the ones that I know. And I do know that there is a third track in Kentucky called Turfway, and it also works the same way. I've just never worked there, even though I actually live pretty close to there. Not this last year, but the 3 years prior, I actually lived pretty close, but I never worked there. I just didn't. I probably should have, but anyway. For each day that you work, you earn 1 day of seniority. And what they do is they assign so many people to work, and they start at the top of the seniority list and they work their way down. And they figure out how many people. This is what Churchill does, or Keeneland does. I'm going to say Churchill, but I also mean like each separate track. But what Churchill does is they start at the top of the seniority list. They figure out how many people they need, how many people are signed up to work, or have asked to work that day, and they will assign a number. And so you'll call the assignment line, and they'll tell you how many people not how many people. They'll tell you what number they're assigned to. So you'll call up and they'll say, okay, to work on Saturday, not July, they don't run in July. To work Saturday, May 30th, I'm just making up a day, you must have 548 days, and then the deadline is at this time. And then they'll have a couple different deadlines because you can actually work a couple different times. So most days at Churchill, this one is different. Keeneland only has one deadline. They don't have a second shift. So at Churchill, they actually have, they usually have a shift that's around 12:30 that starts, and then they might have a second shift that starts around somewhere between 4:30 and 5:30. That shift is, that shift is great because it's only 4 hours, and sometimes, actually you're guaranteed 4 hours, because sometimes you might actually work like 3 hours and then go home and you get paid an extra hour. It happens. It's happened to me before. I get paid for an extra hour because you're guaranteed so many hours, but they only need you for so long. So anyway, they usually have about 2 shifts. Now on big days like Preakness and Belmont, because it's different than Oaks and Derby, is a whole other ball game. But on big days like Preakness and Belmont, and maybe like night racing days, because they do have days where the races at Churchill don't actually start until I don't know, like 5:30, somewhere in there. They start later. Then they might actually have a couple other shifts. Now these other shifts don't cover the live races. They actually cover what's called ITW, Intertrack Wagering. So you, as a patron, you can actually go out and you can bet on the horses at Churchill Downs, or you can also place bets on other tracks, and they have them on TVs and they show the races there. So other tracks run at different times, and especially like California, Santa Anita, they don't start until our time is much later, and they don't end until our time is much later. And then other tracks also sometimes have night racing too. So that's why they have all the different shifts, so that there are people to cover the other races. Now they don't need as many people to work for that, but also there's a lot of employees that don't want to work that other shift, so they might get down to a lower seniority number at that time. So I don't really know how they figure out who's requested what and what they're assigned to and all of that. Churchill knows what they're doing, and they figure that out. So they will just put on the assignment line that you call in, and it's just a recorded message that you listen to, and they'll tell you what the assignment is for each shift. And if you want the later shift, you have to request that. I request that because there are several days that I might get assigned for that second shift, but I wouldn't be assigned on the first shift. And if I don't sign up to be assigned on a later shift, then I might not work at all. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but you can have a preference. I actually have a preference to work the first shift, but if they don't get to me on that shift and they would get to me on the second shift, then they'll put me on. So that's what it means to be assigned, is you go in and you know that you have a place, you have a job that day. Then they have what's called standby. And so if you are not assigned, and some people choose to be on standby. At Keeneland, I often choose standby only. I ask to not be assigned, because they work things a little bit differently, and they work more employees regularly during the live meet. So I actually a lot of times will sign up and say, I'll just come for standby, do not assign me, I'll come. And what I'll do is, that way, if I can't make it, because it's driving to Lexington from Louisville, so it's a good hour drive. And it happened this past spring, actually. There was a day I was just way too stressed out. I had so much stuff going on at school, and I was trying to keep up with YouTube at the same time, and there was so much going on. I just needed that Sunday, and I took that Sunday off, and I didn't go in. Had I been assigned and not gone in, I would get in trouble. So for Keeneland, I'll sign up for standby only, and that way I'll go every day that I can. But if something happens, I don't have to worry about it. But I know that I'm going to work there because they will work me, and I have enough seniority there that I'm basically at the top of the seniority list on standby, because they still go by seniority even on standby. So at Churchill, I sign up to work, but they don't really work me, and I have to go on standby because I'm not assigned automatically. I hope I'm not losing you yet. Okay, so then you sign up on the standby list, and what they do is once the deadline hits, you have to be there by that time. If you're late, and this is for every track, I know that for sure. If you are late, you pretty much won't work. I mean, not even 30 seconds late, you won't work. It's possible on a really, really big race day, you'll work. Like, you'll definitely work. If you're late on Derby Day, you'll work. But like, if you're late on like a night racing day, which is a big day to race, or not to race, but is a big day to work, and I actually am most often assigned on the night racing days. I guess they're nights, but night racing, because I'm usually assigned. If you're late, even whether you're assigned or not, if you're late, you go to the bottom of the standby list, and it's like your seniority for that is like 0. Now, it doesn't go to 0, it just goes to 0 for that day. You are still above any non-union people, so the union people are like even behind them, but the non-union people don't really, I've seen them come out, and I kind of wonder why they're there, but because they don't work. They pretty much fill in on really, really, really big race days, like Oaks and Derby, and that whole week you might be able to work as a non-union person. I hope it's not confusing. So anyway, you have to be there by the deadline, and we usually get there like really, really early. I mean, like 30 minutes to an hour before deadline. We usually get there just because you never know what the traffic's going to be like, and parking, and you have to walk in. It's quite a walk to walk in, and so there's a lot to that. So we usually get there really, really early. And if you're not assigned, because if you're assigned, you just like kind of pick up your assignment, and then you go to your window and you work. If you are not assigned, you put your name down. At Keeneland, it's computerized. At Churchill, you just write it down. And what they do is everybody that signed up for standby, they rank you in seniority order. And then if they need more workers for that day, they will pull from the standby list starting at the top and work their way down. And I am very often at the bottom of the standby list. Now, I did actually work on Saturday, and because it was the last day of live meet for Churchill. I actually worked on Saturday. I was not assigned, but I signed up, and I was actually in the middle of the standby list, because they had their original number they assigned down to like 300 and something days, which normally on a Saturday it might be like 700 or 800 days you would have to have in order to work. It was down to 300, which means more people have been assigned, which means there's more likely somebody in there may not have paid attention, or there's more people, which also means more likely that somebody can't make it. There was an emergency, they couldn't make it, or something happened. They might have called in, maybe they didn't check the assignments and they didn't know they were assigned and they just didn't show up. Now, they get in trouble for that, but it happens. So those are called no-shows, and or it could even be last minute call-ins or something like that, emergencies and things like that, where they don't really get in trouble, but they don't work and they need somebody to fill that person. So they'll pull from the standby list. Then they also will kind of keep tabs on, okay, what's the attendance for, all of the people that are coming in and customers. Are people betting? Are the lines and the betting windows really long? Do we need to put more people on to kind of alleviate those lines so that people aren't so that all the people are able to get their bets in and things like that. So they'll kind of figure out if they need more people. Keeneland, they're really, really good about putting people on right away, and they know that they're going to work people. I've never had a problem. I mean, like, oh gosh, I think I only had like 15 days at Keeneland, and then I was being assigned. Like, I worked one meet. Actually, I don't even think it was 15 days. I think I had like less than 10 days. And the next meet, I was assigned every single time. At Churchill, I've been in the union since 2004. And Keeneland, I have over 200 days. I don't even know how many days I have at Keeneland, because it doesn't matter. I have over 200 days, and I'm not worried about it, because I know that if I want to go on a Wednesday, I know that I'll work, because I have enough seniority just with 200 days. At Churchill, being in the union the same amount of time, I have 126 days. And that's with, like, guaranteed. I work Derby week. I don't always work the whole week, but I work at least Oaks and Derby, and very often the Thursday before. And then there's like a few days throughout the year that I'll get. So, 2004, so in 14 years, I've worked 126 days at Churchill in 14 years. So 126 kind of sounds like a lot, but spread that out over 14 years, what is that? I need to do the math on that. That's like 9 days a year. Yeah, that's not that much. It really isn't. And so, that's just kind of the way that it is. So anyway, I don't really work a whole lot, but the more seniority that I have, the more that I will work. And when I joined the union and started working out there, I did it partially for extra money, of course, and I do use that extra money now, but I'm also building up my seniority days so that, you know, when I'm in my 50s and 60s and about to retire, then I have an option for a second job and doing another job if I want to, for a little extra income. It doesn't mean that I have to. It doesn't mean that I'm definitely going to forever work out there or whatever, but it's just kind of like an option. And in order to work when I want to later, I have to try to work every single day that I can right now and try to build up those days, and as much as I can. Just to give a little perspective, some of the people that have been out there for a very long time have thousands of days. My mom has over 1,000. The other thing with that is that there are a lot of old people that work out there. I'm trying to be a little sensitive, but it's not. I don't know how else to describe it. I mean, I'm not saying, like, my mom is older. She is actually officially retired, but she can still work out there. And, speaking of which, that's another reason why I am continuing to work as much as I can at Churchill's, because every day that I work, I actually have money that goes into a pension as part of the union that I'm in. So there is a pension that goes along with that. So I don't think I have a whole lot right now, but, you know, maybe by the time I'm ready to retire, I can have, you know, at least a little bit, give me a little bit of extra cash when I'm retired. So working at Churchill Downs isn't just an extra job for extra money right now. It's also kind of like a retirement plan, both to work when I'm retired for extra money and for pension. So I am thinking about my future when it comes to this job. It's just, I have to go and I have to sit. This is actually the standby room at Churchill, and I'm showing you the ceiling because it's, you know, it's kind of like a basement, but it's not a basement. Okay, so this is the machine where you can place bets, so you can watch the races while we're in the standby room. And it's not a basement, it just kind of looks basement-ish. There's some tables and chairs, and the table in the back is really wobbly. They like to store old tickets because we have to keep the tickets for record keeping. There's a fridge, there's the air vent or whatever. It's really, really loud, which you can probably hear. And then there's lots of chairs to sit in, but sometimes the standby room can be full. And this room actually used to be like twice the size, but they built this wall here, and now it's like half the size. And you just sit here, and there I am playing Candy Crush. I gotta go back to the standby list. I didn't finish explaining that. So when they need people, they'll pull from the top of the list and they'll go down the list. And I'm very often at the bottom of the list, and they don't always get to me. So what I've been doing is I will just ride there with my parents, and I'll go. They're assigned, they're working. I sit on standby, and I had said that Keeneland is really, really good about being fast and putting people on, and they'll put everybody on most of the time. Churchill is different. They take their time. They wait a long time. Sometimes several races, which could be a couple of hours. I think Saturday I was put on just before the 4th race, and there's usually about 25 minutes between each race, so I pretty much was waiting more than 2 hours because I got there long before deadline, because my mom actually had to be there early, so I was there really early. So but if you start counting at deadline time, we waited about 2 hours before we got put on. Here's the thing: if you work when you're sitting in standby, you get paid for the whole day. So I got paid for sitting for 2 hours and doing nothing because I worked. But if you don't work, you don't get paid, and you don't get any kind of credit. I kind of wish that we got, like, I don't know, a 10th of a seniority day. I don't need to get paid for doing nothing. That's fine. I kind of wish that we got, like, at least a little bit of credit for being there. Because if you're there every day and you're sitting every day, I kind of feel like you should get a little credit for that, and you don't. That's just my personal opinion. Yeah. And I think, and if they did that, they should have a check where, like, if you come in and you sign standby and then you leave to try to get that credit, you don't get the credit. You only get the credit for a little bit of a fraction of a seniority day if you wait until they tell you you can go home. Like, if you come in and you sign the standby list and you wait around and then they say, all right, we're not going to use you, you can go home, then they can check your name off that, yes, you waited this whole time, you get that credit. So, like, that would prevent people from, like, coming in, signing their name, and then leaving, and then, like, trying to get the credit. Because, no, you get the credit only if you wait around. That's just my own personal thought, like, yeah, we should get that. But, anyway, I doubt they'll ever do that, and there might not be a need for Mutuel Tellers by the time I'm ready to retire, just because of, machines and automation, and they have, self-serve machines, and, everything is so much more computerized, and, so I might be building up a retirement plan that just completely fails, but I'm okay with that, because in the meantime, I am currently getting paid in the meantime, so it's fine. At least, it's not a big deal. So anyway, that is kind of how that works, and how you get paid. Not how you get paid, but like how that seniority and standby and all that works, and why I say I'm trying to work. And it kind of stinks, because it's kind of like, if I work, it more than makes up for working somewhere else. Like, if I'm working somewhere else, minimum wage, even a little bit over minimum wage, I'm just making a little bit. but I would kind of be guaranteed a job. Like if I went to work at a fast food restaurant or something, like I'd be put on a schedule and I would know what that schedule is, and you know, so I would know that I'm working that day. But working one day at Churchill Downs is kind of like working probably a whole week at a part-time job. So yeah, I mean, one day at Churchill Downs is about $120. Because we make, I don't know exactly how much it is. It's over $20 an hour doing what we do. So it's worth it, very much worth it. And the job it's not very hard either, unless you have some really rude customers, but you get rude customers anywhere you go that has public people in it, you know. I mean, you get rude customers at the fast food place. Actually, you might get more rude customers there just because they want their food and they're hungry, and people are rude when they're hungry. At least some people are. So, you know, like, you have to deal with that anywhere. So it's nice. It's a nice job, and the pay is really nice. It's just the uncertainty can be really, really hard to handle. So I know that I didn't get a part-time job for this summer, which I kind of wanted to, but I didn't really look too hard. I did try to get I did try to do some tutoring, but I didn't get any 2Ds, and I also tried, I sent my resume and tried to apply for like a camp, not a camp, but like a summer school, I guess, kind of thing, and that didn't pan out either. So I did try a little bit to get some kind of another job for the summer, but the amount that I have worked, probably, it's kind of like if I made an extra $100 a week all throughout the summer doing some other kind of part-time job. Plus, it's left me a lot of, I was going to say it left me a lot of free time. My time has been taken up sitting out there, really, because this is something else I didn't finish. But what I do is I would ride with my parents, and then they go to work, and then I'll sit in the standby room. Once they let me go, because more often than not they let me go, I would either continue to sit, or I would go out and go somewhere, maybe go get something to eat, or go to the store, which, I mean, if you saw my budget, I didn't spend very much last month, but I might just drive around, or I might, most times I would come home, even though I'd only be home for like an hour or two, like that's it. And then I'd have to go back to pick them up, and since I had to go back to pick them up, then I would sign up for the second shift, or the evening shift, and try to work that. Much less likely to work the evening shift, because a lot of times they really just have like 2 or 3 people working the evening shift, and they all show up, they don't need more people, they don't put me on. But since I have to pick up my parents, I try, and not really rewarded, but you know, I tried. So yeah, that's pretty much how that works. So to me, this is very, very, very unusual, and I'm used to it, but I don't know of any other jobs that work like this job does. I would really like to know if you know of any jobs, or if you've ever had a job that works similar to how this works. So if you have heard of one, or if you have been in one, I would like to know about that. So if you could leave me a comment down below, I would love to know, and just to know, is this really unusual like I think it is? Because I feel like this is unusual. It's not it's nowhere near like a typical job. So and I've had a lot of jobs, and this is the only one that's worked like this. So so yeah, let me know in the comments below if you know of any other jobs like this, and Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you are not already subscribed. I like to talk about my weight loss journey and my debt-free journey, and I'm just kind of talking about whatever I want on Mondays, and today is all about my weird job. So, and how that works. Also, if you have any other questions about working at Churchill Downs, maybe this could turn into like a question and answer, and I could answer questions about Churchill Downs. I get a lot of questions from people that have never been. Seriously, if you have any questions at all about what it's like to work there, or even just about Churchill Downs or Keeneland and horse racing in general. I don't have any hot tips. No, I don't know anything, and I really don't know that much about horses, but I do know a lot about what it's like to work there. So anyway, leave me a comment down below about jobs that you know of, or if you have any other questions, and I would love to answer them for you. So yeah, that's it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.